So XRP is finally printing today. Let's discuss everything that is going on with XRP and the cryptocurrency market so you guys can be fully up to date. And there is some worrying data I want you to be aware of so you know exactly how I feel about this market.
XRP가 상승하고 있습니다. 하지만 뭔가 걱정이 있다는 8년차 트레이더 코너. 오늘의 중요한 소식과 코너의 전망 함께 알아보겠습니다.
We can see across the board, altcoins are up around 5%. Some outliers like Pengu here, but mostly it's around 5%, with XRP doing something very similar to the rest of the market. We can see from my trading portfolio here that Solana, XRP, Ethereum, and Sui are all doing very nicely today. Sui being the outlier again, moving more than the rest of the market, which is kind of something that I was expecting. And this is why I like to hedge my bets. I'm bullish on XRP, but I'm also bullish on Ethereum, Solana, Sui, and of course, Bitcoin. We did have yesterday Brad Garlinghouse speaking to the US Senate, speaking about crypto, speaking about XRP, speaking about the case, right? And I think this has just been what we needed, right? People to see that Ripple is really standing their own in a place like this Senate hearing, right? So I think this has put a spotlight on XRP. But of course, we're not seeing XRP move really more than the rest of the market. It's not breaking out against the market or anything like that, but what we are seeing is a lovely move to the upside. Now, this is where patience plays, right? Because we've seen a run for Bitcoin. I've read the comments and I see the market as a whole. Most people are essentially bearish on anything but Bitcoin. They don't think it's possible that we could do anything because it's been so quote unquote boring. But this is again where patience comes in. My very best, most profitable investments and trades have come when everyone says the market is dead. And if this time turns out that I'm wrong, right? And we do head into a bear market. Guess what? I will have an opportunity for everyone to tell me that the market is dead, and I will accumulate the projects that I believe in again, and then I will make profit. I took another 0.25 Bitcoin out of my trade, totaling about $20,000 to $25,000 in profit that I did live on the channel, following my exact strategy. The simple format of the strategy: buy when everyone's scared, slowly take profits as we move into euphoria. So we can see now the fear and greed index is telling us we're in greed. We do have the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq at all-time highs, continuing to push up. We in fact have Nvidia being the first company to hit a $4 trillion market cap, and this liquidity, I believe, is what's flowing again into Bitcoin and now hopefully trickling down into the altcoins. We can see Michael Saylor's made $24 billion in profit. We're the president of El Salvador, 400 million just from buying Bitcoin every day. We have 159,000 Bitcoin that has been bought in Q2 by corporations. And it's interesting because, like I said, people who are talking badly about Bitcoin, you can see, I just saw this tweet here: zero institutional demand, right? Bitcoin hitting new all-time high with zero volume and zero institutional demand. But we had 159,000 Bitcoin worth 17.4 billion bought in Q2 2025. So you can take it as you will, but let's take everything with a grain of salt that we read on the internet. But Bitcoin just surpassed Google to become the 6th largest asset in the world. We now seeing signs that money might be flying into altcoins because we have Bitcoin going up with Bitcoin dominance going down. We also have publicly traded companies starting to buy Ethereum. We have a whale buying Ethereum. We had Tom Lee saying he's buying $250 million of Ethereum. And we now have for Ethereum the Genius Bill, Tom Lee, ZK breakthroughs to scale L1, Robinhood L2, 5-way race for 1 billion ETH treasuries, Paul Atkinson's in the SEC, the return of DeFi, and a stable coin summer, all leading Ryan S. Adams here on Twitter to believe that we could potentially hit new or all-time highs once again. And remember, the liquidity tends to flow from Bitcoin into Ethereum and then into the altcoins, of which XRP sits. So right now, I believe that XRP is moving up because the rest of the market is seeing a nice move. Bitcoin is at all-time highs, or very close to all-time highs at least, and all eyes right now for me are on this resistance point, about right on 12,000, and that's what I'm watching closely. Is Bitcoin going to break through this finally, or are we going to get rejected, which we might be seeing the start now? I believe that probably in the short term, we might see a lot of volatility, maybe bringing us down to here, maybe just staying up here before breaking upwards. The reason I see that is because of this data. Most people have been annihilated from their shorts. So what's pushed the market up is a short squeeze potentially. And then we see here a lot of retail going into long positions, piling in. We got $16.6 billion of long liquidations if Bitcoin falls down to 96,000. Now, I'm not in any way saying that Bitcoin's going to drop to 96 from where it is right now. But what this shows us is, again, as always, retail piling in right at the top to their long positions rather than being positioned early in order to make the benefit from this. The benefit being, like I said, I just took profits up here. When everyone's piling in, I'm slowly taking profits. We may very well head higher. I might be wrong. We might not have this volatility here and we might go higher. But guess what? Up here, I can then take a little bit more profits. Up here, I can then take a little bit more profits. Up here, I can then take a little bit more profits. And that's how I plan to move this, because at the end of the day, I don't know what will happen for sure. I can just go on the history. Now, the history shows us if money does in fact start to flow into Ethereum, which it slowly seems to be. You can see Ethereum looks very similar to XRP. This could then trigger people being comfortable moving liquidity into altcoins. Of course, there's no guarantees there, and we don't know if it will be XRP that benefits the most. It may be other altcoins, maybe Solana, Ethereum, Sui, or it may be none of these. But this is how I've positioned myself, and I'll keep you guys up to date with what I'm seeing in this market every single day. Of course, there is no guarantees that you'll be able to see the same gains, but hopefully you will, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.